an HMRC audit, a German social security investigation, a delayed Series C funding round. All of these disasters can be triggered by just one misclassified contractor. When companies talk about converting contractors to employees, they usually think it's about retention. It isn't. It's about exposure. When you have 50 employees, using contractors feels super efficient. It's flexible, it's fast. But once you hit 200 employees, those same contractors quietly become a massive liability on your books. And by the time your investors, government regulators, or external auditors flag the issue, paying the price is no longer optional. This is your essential compliance guide to converting contractors the right way before someone else forces you to do it. There's a predictable moment when this becomes a crisis. It usually happens when a company has between 200 and 2,000 employees. This is the stage when chief financial officers start preparing for serious due diligence. The board starts asking tough questions about workforce risk. The company is expanding into multiple European countries. Suddenly, that wonderful contractor flexibility turns into a legal nightmare of fragmentation. What worked perfectly well in one country simply doesn't work in 5. And what might have passed a review 2 years ago could easily fail an audit today. Let's be clear, this isn't about job titles. You can call someone a contractor or employee, whatever you want. This is about their legal classification in the eyes of the law. Across most of Europe, there are 3 core tests that regulators use to determine someone's true employment status. The first test is all about control and direction. Ask yourself, who really controls how the work gets done? If you're the one setting their working hours, requiring them to attend your internal meetings, telling them which tools and processes to use, and approving their vacation time, then you are exercising the control of an employer. This is a primary red flag for employment in UKIR 35 assessments, in German reclassification reviews, and in French subordination doctrine cases. For regulators, control is always the starting point. The second test is about financial risk and independence. Real, legitimate contractors operate their own businesses. They send invoices to multiple clients. They bear their own financial risks. They invest in their own equipment, and they have the potential to make a profit or a loss based on their performance. Now, if your contractor works only for you, uses your company laptop, receives a fixed payment every month, and has zero commercial risk, that argument for them being an independent contractor gets a lot weaker. The third test, and this is where most companies get tripped up, ask these questions about your contractors. Are they on your official org chart? Do they have a company email address? Do they show up in your internal employee directories? Are they representing your company to the outside world? And maybe most importantly, are they involved in creating your core intellectual property? Every time you answer yes to one of these questions, you're building a stronger case for them being an employee. Individually, these things might just seem like operational details. But legally, they build a reclassification file against you. In the United States, enforcement can vary from state to state. In Europe, it is highly structured and often severe. Let's look at the United Kingdom and its IR35 rules. Under IR35, a contractor can remain legally self-employed for business purposes but be taxed as if they were an employee. This means you could be on the hook for backdated tax liabilities, employer national insurance contributions, and significant penalties for getting the status determination wrong. And for medium-sized and large companies, the responsibility for making that assessment falls squarely on you, the client. Germany treats what it calls false self-employment as a very high-risk issue. If a worker is reclassified, the company can be forced to pay up to 4 years of backdated Social Security contributions for both the employer and employee portions. There can also be hefty fines and, in the most extreme cases, even criminal liability for management. A bill of 40 to 60,000 euros per worker is not unusual. In France, the law assumes employment if a relationship of subordination is proven. If you're giving instructions, monitoring the work, and exercising authority over the individual, the burden of proof shifts to you to prove they aren't an employee. Retroactive reclassification in France can include backdated benefits, social charges, and paid leave entitlements. It gets expensive fast. So when does this ticking time bomb usually go off? The conversion from contractor to employee typically becomes urgent in one of three scenarios. The first is pre-funding due diligence. When you're trying to raise that next big round of investment, your potential investors are going to ask some very specific questions. How many contractors do you have? In which countries are they located? Has their employment status been formally assessed by a legal expert? And what is your potential financial exposure from reclassification? Even one unresolved contractor issue can delay or even kill a funding round. The smartest companies run these audits 6 to 12 months before they even start fundraising. The second trigger is multi-country expansion. Managing contractors in one country is manageable. Managing them across 5 countries means dealing with 5 completely different employment codes. A contractor setup that is perfectly compliant in Germany might completely fail in France. Consistency goes out the window, and your exposure to risk compounds with every new country you enter. The third trigger is working with core IP or in a regulated industry. If you're in defense, fintech, health tech, or deep tech, there are often strict compliance frameworks that dictate who can legally access sensitive intellectual property. In many cases, contractors simply aren't allowed to. At that point, employment status becomes a regulatory necessity, not just a preference. Now, let's talk about the real cost equation. Yes, employees cost more upfront. Employer social security contributions in Europe can range from 25% to 45% of salary, depending on the country, but that cost is predictable. It can be budgeted for, and it's completely defensible during due diligence. The cost of misclassification, on the other hand, is retroactive. It comes with interest, it damages your reputation, and it can trigger wider audits into your business. The cost of compliance is planned. The cost of non-compliance is disruptive and chaotic. So how do you handle this the right way? Here are 7 compliance-safe steps for converting your contractors. Step 1. Conduct a formal status assessment. Before you even think about offering employment, you need to document your current risk exposure. Record the rationale for how you've classified each contractor and identify any jurisdiction-specific red flags. This protects you historically and shows you've been diligent. Step 2. Audit your existing contractor agreements. Check everything. Look at the notice periods, the IP assignment clauses, any non-compete restrictions, and exclusivity terms. An improper termination of a contractor agreement can create a whole new set of legal disputes. Step 3. Map the local employment laws for each country. Every jurisdiction has its own mandatory provisions for things like paid leave, termination protections, probation periods, and pension obligations. Using a generic template from another country is a recipe for disaster and will not survive legal scrutiny. Step 4. Decide whether to use an employer of record, or EOR, or set up your own legal entity. Both are compliant routes. An EOR offers speed and lower setup friction, making it ideal for a small number of employees in a new country. Setting up your own entity has a lower long-term cost, gives you greater operational control, and builds a stronger employer brand. Think of an EOR as the scaffolding, not the permanent building. Step 5. Draft jurisdiction-specific employment agreements. This is absolutely critical. Pay close attention to clauses related to IP ownership, confidentiality, termination language, and any references to collective bargaining agreements that might apply. Step 6. Align your payroll and social contributions from day one. A misaligned payroll during the transition can trigger tax inconsistencies, create reporting gaps, and raise massive audit flags. The legal conversion and the operational payroll conversion must happen in perfect sync. Step 7. Have a structured onboarding process. A fast, compliant onboarding prevents new hires from getting cold feet and withdrawing their acceptance. It reduces uncertainty and avoids any parallel or leftover contractor work that could weaken the new employment status. Speed builds trust. Delay builds risk. Many mid-market companies make the mistake of using one system for contractors, another provider for their EOR employees, and a third platform for their direct payroll. This creates visibility gaps, inconsistent data, and makes any kind of audit a complete nightmare. Having a single view of your entire workforce is the only way to reduce compliance blind spots. Let's be real about the bigger strategic picture here. Converting contractors is not a paperwork exercise. It is a fundamental governance decision. Every single contractor that you have informally assessed is sitting on your balance sheet as a latent risk. It complicates future funding rounds and weakens your overall compliance posture. The absolute best time to convert your contractors is before you are required to. If your company has between 200 and 2,000 employees, and you operate across multiple European jurisdictions, then contractor conversion is no longer optional corporate hygiene. It is a Tier 1 compliance strategy. You need to run a formal contractor audit, map your jurisdictional exposure, and convert your contractors before an enforcement agency does it for you. Because scaling your company globally is impressive, but scaling it compliantly is defensible. Thanks for watching. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and follow for more insights on global workforce compliance.